He was wearing my hoodie and walking my dog, said I. She emptied our savings and laughed in my kitchen with a man who called himself a life coach. She forgot one thing. I still had access to everything. My name is Cole, 41 years old. I've spent the last 9 years working as a regional logistics manager for a supply chain firm nobody outside the industry talks about, but that everyone unknowingly relies on. Long-haul routes, fulfillment bottlenecks, back-end vendor management, none of it was sexy, but it paid the bills. And I was good at it. I kept things running when everything else fell apart, especially at home. See, I wasn't the guy who missed anniversaries or forgot birthdays. I didn't spend weekends on golf courses or nights out at bars. I came home, I cooked dinner, I folded laundry. Hell, I even learned how to use Pinterest when she got obsessed with home decor. Not because I cared about throw pillows, but because I cared about her. I met Sienna 10 years ago at a friend's engagement party. She'd just left corporate HR to start her own wellness coaching business. I remember she had this energy in the room, like she had her own spotlight. And when she talked about healing the nervous system through alignment and intention, I had no idea what that meant. Still don't, but she believed in it. So I believed in her. When we moved in together, I took on the morning commute solo so she could meet clients at home. When she wanted to convert the guest room into a studio, I cleared it out in one weekend. I even helped her write the pitch deck for her first group program, even though I thought the name Awaken Pathway Collective sounded like a yoga cult. But I said nothing, because love makes you blind, and sometimes stupid. We had joint everything: bank accounts, calendar apps, grocery lists. We even shared the Amazon login. That's how much I trusted her. Not once in nearly a decade did I ever think she was capable of what she eventually did. Not until the Thursday I came home from a client trip and found half my closet empty, the Wi-Fi password changed, and a note that just said, "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I need space to grow." At first, I thought maybe she'd cracked. Burnout, maybe. She'd been posting a lot of choose-yourself content lately, captioning reels with phrases like radical rebirth and release what no longer serves you. I figured it was a phase. But when I logged into our joint account and saw every dollar gone, and I mean every dollar, reality snapped into focus. No warning. No conversation. Just a full reset of our lives while I was busy coordinating warehouse shortages in Nevada. And the guy? Yeah, he wasn't even subtle. Some transformational guide named Clay, who sold online courses about masculine alignment and posted shirtless monologues about reclaiming the inner fire. He walked around our house like he owned the place, used my coffee mug, slept in our bed, wore my hoodie. What they didn't know is that while I was doing late-night spreadsheets and she was meditating with healing crystals, I was also the one who set up the entire smart security system. Cameras, microphones, cloud storage. They forgot who had built the infrastructure. Back when I joined the company, we were still tracking freight with spreadsheets and sticky notes. 3 warehouses, 12 employees, and more chaos than coordination. I came in as a mid-level analyst, working graveyard shifts just to fix the mistakes no one else caught. Within the first 6 months, I rebuilt the regional routing logic from scratch on my own time. By the end of that year, I was managing inbound operations across 3 states. I didn't ask for a title bump. I didn't need one. I was just trying to build something solid. We grew fast, acquired 2 competitors, opened 6 new hubs. The founder used to walk the floor every Friday and shake hands with the night crew. It felt like a team back then, a place where work meant something. But culture changes quietly. First came the consultants, then the metrics dashboards, then the people who smiled too much and knew too little. Eventually the founder retired. The private equity boys took over, and everything got colder. It started with small things, always does. First, my name disappeared from the weekly ops briefings. Then I stopped getting copied on emails I used to approve. When I asked about it, they said the org chart was evolving, whatever that meant. One Monday I walked into the main office and saw that my desk had been moved. No explanation. Just shifted to the far corner, across from the interns. They brought in a new director. Kid named Trevor. Slick haircut, startup vocabulary, wore Allbirds like it was a personality trait. "We need to future-proof the system," he'd say, while reading off a script he barely understood. He started scheduling collaboration syncs where I was supposed to train 2 junior analysts on tasks I built from scratch. They asked good questions but didn't know the first thing about managing freight across 5 states during a snowstorm. One of them, Colin, I think, asked me how to override the hub lockout protocol. I told him you can't, that it's there for a reason. The next day the protocol was changed anyway. No warning, just gone. Every time I raised a concern, Trevor smiled like I'd asked for his Netflix password. "Thanks for the legacy insight, Cole. We're moving toward a leaner structure now." Legacy insight. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't a person anymore. I was a problem they needed to solve quietly. I stopped getting invited to leadership. Calls my PTO requests took weeks to get approved. The guy I'd trained 5 years ago? Suddenly he was managing the entire Western Corridor. No heads up, no call, just a company-wide announcement with a smiling photo and buzzwords like vision and agility. Meanwhile, the systems were breaking, slowly, quietly. Shipments delayed, clients frustrated, forecasts misaligned. But no one asked me anything. They just kept saying, "We've got it under control." They didn't, and I wasn't about to correct them. The funny thing is, they thought I'd just vanish, like I'd take the insult, pack my things, and disappear quietly into the fog. I guess that's what usually happens when someone like me gets pushed aside, someone who doesn't make noise. But silence isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's strategy. They didn't notice when I stopped responding to Slack threads, or when I began exporting system logs under my own credentials. Just habit, really. I'd built most of the back end. No one questioned why I still had elevated access. I wasn't sabotaging anything. I was just collecting. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. A client portal failed mid-cycle. A regional hub missed a delivery window by 42 hours. The junior team blamed legacy bugs. I watched quietly from my corner desk, sipping the same coffee Clay had started stealing from the break room. One afternoon, I overheard them arguing about why the route optimizer was down. "It's self-learning AI," Colin muttered. "It should adapt." I wanted to laugh. That code wasn't AI. It was a spreadsheet macro I wrote in 2017 on a weekend, half drunk, with one eye on a football game. But sure, call it machine learning. Still, I said nothing. No warnings, no, "I told you so." And when Clay, shirt half-buttoned, ego fully inflated, walked past my desk and nodded like he was blessing a servant, I just smiled and nodded back. Because the best revenge doesn't come with shouting. It comes wrapped in quiet, and it's already started. The offer came on a Wednesday. I was in the break room reheating leftovers when I got the message. Subject line: "Would love to connect. Referral from Ian Marcus." Ian and I hadn't spoken in almost 4 years. He'd gone independent after leaving our company during the first wave of cuts and had quietly built a boutique consultancy. Apparently, he'd been following my career from a distance. Apparently, he knew exactly what I was sitting on. The message was simple. "We're building something. You were the first name on my list." I didn't reply right away. Not because I wasn't interested, but because I wanted to be ready. By that point, I'd been quietly mapping everything. Old architecture diagrams, policy memos, user permissions, vendor dependencies. All cross-referenced and version-controlled in a private repository they didn't even know existed. I wasn't planning revenge. I was documenting a system collapse they wouldn't see coming. 2 weeks later, Ian flew in and we met at a quiet cafe near the airport. He didn't pitch me anything. He just handed over a folder. Inside, full benefits, profit sharing, a team of engineers who needed structure and autonomy to rebuild a logistics framework from scratch. From the ground up. No middle managers. No corporate jargon, just execution. I looked up. You're offering me everything they pretended they were giving me. He nodded. Difference is, I mean it. The next day, back at work, the panic started. A full system outage in the Midwest. Hub, no one could trace the failure. Their vendor escalation matrix? Outdated. The fallback script? Broken. The guys they kept on payroll to replace me. They didn't even know what a checksum flag was. I'd never sabotaged anything. But I also never gave them the keys they needed when they pushed me out. That Friday, I got a call from Trevor. Hey Cole, quick question. Do you happen to remember where the access logs for the delivery cache are stored? We're having some visibility issues. I stared at my screen, took a sip of coffee, and replied, Sorry, Trevor, I've been a little out of the loop. Maybe check the documentation. He stammered something about transition planning and collaboration, said he'd follow up. I ended the call before he could. That weekend, they lost 3 long-term contracts. Clients started calling Ian. One of them even said, Is Cole available? We trusted him. The next week, I gave my 2-week notice. Trevor tried to act surprised. We thought things were going well, he said, trying to play dumb. I smiled. I know. That was the plan. They kept calling for days. First it was Trevor, then the IT manager I never liked, then some executive I'd never met who thought his LinkedIn bio made him important. All of them with the same fake casual tone. Just wondering if you might be available to help us navigate a few unexpected system issues. The irony was delicious. While they scrambled, I was already onboarding with Ian's team. New laptop, clean tools, real leadership. No fake motivational posters on the wall. No glass-walled meetings full of people pretending to understand back-end structure. Back at my old company, the chaos only got worse. The Midwest hub never fully recovered. Their national routing model was built on an algorithm I'd written during peak season 4 years ago. An algorithm that required a manual refresh protocol every quarter. Nobody remembered that, or knew how. Inventory forecasts tanked. Customer satisfaction plummeted. Contracts started dissolving. Fast. A week later, I got a letter, hand-delivered. From legal, they wanted to remind me of my obligations regarding proprietary knowledge, secure files, and non-compete clauses. The usual dance. Nicely worded threats wrapped in corporate politeness. I didn't flinch. See, I never took anything that wasn't mine. I hadn't broken in, I'd built it, and they'd fired me without so much as an exit interview. The data I'd archived, public-facing, the methods, mine, the strategy I was now applying, also mine, and fully legal. Ian's legal team reviewed the letter and laughed. They're bluffing, they said, and desperate. Meanwhile, I kept getting texts from ex-colleagues. They're falling apart without you. You wouldn't believe what they messed up today. Trevor's been in meetings all day trying to explain to the board why our routing is failing. I didn't reply, because I wasn't angry anymore. They thought I'd walk out with nothing, but I walked out with the only thing they couldn't copy or control, competence. It wasn't until week 3 that the pieces clicked. I'd just wrapped a strategy call with Ian's product team when I got an email from a name I hadn't seen in months. Lexi, former senior ops coordinator at my old company. Quiet, efficient, underestimated like most of us who kept that place upright. Her message was short. Check your mail. Found something before I left. The next day, a plain white envelope arrived at my new office. No return address. Inside, printed email chains, internal Slack logs, meeting minutes, some highlighted, some redacted, all damning. Turns out, the plan to push me out wasn't just about restructuring or efficiency. It was orchestrated. The director, Trevor, had started lobbying for my removal months before I ever noticed my name missing from meetings. He'd positioned it as a modernization initiative, pitched to the board using language like talent, refresh, and cost optimization. But behind the slides, there were personal jabs. Too stuck in legacy systems. Pushes back on leadership. Team sees him as irreplaceable, risky. Risky. That's what I was to them. Not because I was a threat to the systems, but because I wasn't afraid to say no. Even worse, Sienna, my ex, was part of it. Not directly. But Lexi's logs showed that Trevor had hired her as a contract wellness consultant 6 months before I was let go. All those coaching sessions she posted online, funded by my employer. And worse still, Trevor had been in contact with her long before we split. They didn't just push me out. They erased me. Bit by bit. Quietly. Deliberately. Transfer of projects to juniors. The dismissal of my process documents. The sudden audit of my hours. They were rewriting the internal narrative so when the collapse came, I'd be the one they blamed. The dinosaur who resisted change. The rigid guy who never shared knowledge. And, when it backfired, they tried to flip the script again, first as victims, then as beggars. Then, when that didn't work, through legal threats. But it was too late. I had receipts. I had timelines. I had proof that the wellness contract violated multiple HR policies, including conflict of interest and nepotism. I shared everything with Ian's legal team. 2 days later, the board of my former company received a whistleblower report. Lexi? She signed it with me. And Sienna? She went completely silent online. Deleted her business page. Removed all traces of her transformational guide. Clay, her fake guru, dropped off the radar too. Last I heard, he was offering online breathwork classes under a different alias. What they didn't realize was that the thing they tried to erase was the only thing holding that entire system together. And now that it was gone, the truth came with it. We started with nothing but a whiteboard and 5 people who still believed in building things that worked. No corporate slogans, no hierarchy. Just trust. Ian gave me full autonomy. Said, I brought you in to build, not to ask permission. And so I did. We mapped out a new infrastructure for a supply chain model that didn't rely on bloated dashboards or overpaid consultants. It was clean, scalable, and, most importantly, built by people who understood pain points from the ground. I recruited carefully, not for resumes but for grit. Quiet operators, overlooked analysts, folks like Janine, former inventory, manager who once ran a whole distribution region solo for 2 months without missing a single delivery, and Marcus, a back-end dev who had been buried under a pile of Jira tickets in his last job, now thriving because we let him solve problems instead of chase metrics. We didn't work for applause. We worked for precision. And the results followed, fast. By month 3, we'd onboarded 3 major clients who'd left my former company after too many late shipments and too many excuses. One of them even asked, "Wait, is this Cole's team?" That question became our unofficial brand. Clients didn't just return, they referred others, because competence doesn't need advertising, it just performs. I made a promise to myself during those early days, never lead through fear. I knew what it felt like to be silenced, to be replaced by someone who'd never carried weight. So I created the kind of workplace I never had, where people were heard, credited, and backed when things got hard. We didn't grow overnight, we grew right. And one morning, 6 months in, Ian forwarded me an email. It was from an executive at my old company. The subject line simply said, "Open to conversation." I stared at it for a full minute, then clicked delete, because I wasn't building this to prove a point. I was building it so I'd never again depend on people who couldn't see value until it was gone. The invitation came in the most ironic way possible. A LinkedIn message from a board member I barely remembered but whose name had always appeared in CC when the real decisions were made behind closed doors. His tone was respectful, polished, like he'd just realized something everyone else had known for years. We're exploring a strategic integration between our infrastructure and some emerging independent operations in the space. Your name came up multiple times. We'd be honored to have you lead the process. They weren't just extending an olive branch, they were offering me control. Apparently, after I left, things didn't just fall apart operationally, they fell apart structurally. Internal power struggles, resignations, loss of contracts. Word, On the street was that Trevor had been transitioned out after several costly missteps. Sienna's consulting deal? Quietly erased. HR violations swept under the rug. And now they wanted me back. Not as a consultant, not as a contractor, as a partner. I didn't say yes, not immediately. First, I made a list, not of demands but of non-negotiables. Full operational autonomy, absolute authority to restructure the systems, teams, and protocols. No legacy staff and leadership without my direct approval. No spin, no press, no public announcements with my name attached. And most importantly, my team comes with me, or there is no deal. They agreed to all of it because they weren't buying talent. They were buying competence, something they had once tossed out with a smile and a severance package. When I told Ian, he just grinned. "You're not going back," he said. "You're moving forward, just dragging them along for the ride." And that's exactly what I did. We didn't merge systems. We absorbed them. We restructured everything from scratch. No legacy code. No recycled bureaucracy. My team led every decision. I didn't waste time on ego, apologies, or payback. I set the new terms, quietly, efficiently. I never raised my voice. Never sent a smug email, because real power doesn't announce itself. It rewrites the rules. I walked back into the building through the same side entrance I used for 9 years. Same fluorescent lights, same elevator chime, same outdated motivational posters lining the hallway. But this time, no one avoided eye contact. They looked up. They nodded. Some even stood. No one said welcome back, they didn't have to. The silence said enough. I passed the conference room where they once handed me my walking papers, where Trevor slid the folder across the table like it was just business. Now that same room hosted our integration team. My team. Leading the sessions. Setting the terms. No one dared call me legacy anymore. I wasn't there for nostalgia. I didn't revisit my old desk. I didn't linger in break rooms. I came in, reviewed systems, handled meetings, made decisions, and left. Efficient. Focused. One afternoon, as I was walking out, I crossed paths with Lexi near the lobby. She was consulting on the new workflows. She smiled as she held the elevator door for me. "Feels different now," she said. I nodded. Because now, it's built to last. We didn't need applause. We didn't need recognition. The real win was walking through those same halls, the ones where they thought I was, just another replaceable cog, and knowing that every corner now runs on what I built. Not out of pride, but out of principle, because time has a funny way of circling back, and when it does, it doesn't reward the loudest voice. It rewards the one that endured. I could have cashed out, could have stepped back, put my name on the door, and let someone else run things. But that's never been my style. I'd seen what happens when people build fast and forget who's coming next. So instead of just scaling operations, I started building something different. A bench. Mentorship became non-negotiable. Every hire we made, every system we designed, every meeting I led, it all came with a quiet undercurrent. You're not just doing the job. You're learning to replace me one day. I started a leadership rotation, pairing new team members with veterans. We documented everything, not to protect ourselves, but to empower the next in line. We didn't hoard knowledge. We passed it forward, because true legacy isn't in systems or contracts. It's in people who know their worth and refuse to be silenced again. I never had to scream for respect. I just waited. And when the dust settled, all that was left standing was what I built.